Well, Happy New Year, everyone. Before we start our very first episode of Indie Thinker with Reid, Huberman Season 2, I wanted to share some exciting new things that you can expect in the new year. In Season 2, we're reformatting some things. I've really been thinking about some ways to switch it up a little bit, and so I think these things are going to be a game changer. For example, we have a brand new schedule with all new content for you to enjoy. Every Tuesday and Thursday at 11 a.m., we'll be offering you a redemptive news and information show that's been formatted in a really unique way that you won't be able to find anywhere else on any other podcast. Our goal is that the show will inform you, leave you feeling inspired, rather than depressed and lied to, which is kind of the typical feeling that you get from the legacy media when you watch them. And we'll continue our guest shows with one exception. We're moving them to Sundays, and they're going to happen a little bit more periodically rather than every week like they have been happening in Season 1. So that's why you need to subscribe, click the bell to be notified when new episodes become available so that you don't miss a single bit of this good content. So in honor of this new schedule and a new year and our second season, we have a very special season opener to kick it all off. So thanks so much for watching and for being a part of it. It's 2022, and we're starting with a brand new episode of Indie Thinker, but this one's a special one. It's Indie Thinker with Reid, Huberman, and friends. You're about to make the jump from the echo chamber into free and independent thought on the subjects of culture, causes, politics, and faith. We're going to have a lot of fun talking about current events today from a faith perspective, and we'll get into why we think that's important in a moment, but I first want to introduce our friends here today. So sitting to my left is Josh Stanifer. What's up, Josh?
What's going on, Reid? Happy to be here. I'm excited about all the fun stuff we're going to be talking about. Well, I guess it's not fun. We're going to have fun, but it's kind of, some of the current events are sad.
There's deep stuff to talk about, but I think we need to make light of it too. The one thing that I guess I try to strive for on this podcast is to not take myself too seriously, because we may be the only people doing that and then no one's listening. So I think we need to have a little bit of fun with that, and we will. We'll have a lot of fun looking back on 2021 and looking ahead to 2022. So I'm glad you could be here to do that. By the way,
Absolutely.
Josh was on an episode before with us on an Indie Thinker Roundtable where we were talking about Afghanistan. So you can go back and check that episode out. Also, to Josh's left is a brand new face. This is Spencer Stewart.
Hey, what's going on, guys?
In the flesh.
I am the absolute normalist of normal person with conspiracy theories.
So it's Alex Jones,
Yes.
but your
I
neighbor.
apologize. I apologize in advance for any Alex Jonesing that I may do today.
No, not at all. That's why we brought you on, so that we could make you the person that gets fact-checked.
Perfect.
Do you have your tinfoil hat? Or
No, it's worse than that.
But, by the way, Josh does a really good Alex Jones.
Listen here. No, it's the frogs, okay? The frogs.
That's coffee, Josh.
That's Josh.
Where's that coffee?
So before we jump into what we're going to talk about today, what did you guys do over the break? Anything interesting?
Nothing.
No, you did nothing.
We traveled. That's it.
I was gonna say we spent a lot of time with family, traveling, having fun with the kids. This was our first Christmas where we actually stayed home.
Feels good, right?
And did Christmas Day just with like our wife and kids, and then her family came over, my wife's, and then we traveled for New Year's to see mine. But it was totally different to like have Christmas in the house.
Yeah.
Because we're always the people that travel. So it was different.
Yeah, I always think it's interesting to fight with your relatives after Christmas rather than before. So I think that's a good strategy.
Yeah, it adds some spice to New Year's. It kind of like New Year's is like the redheaded stepchild to Christmas.
That's true.
But when you do it that way, you spice it up.
Yeah, we didn't really have anything spectacular. We were looking forward to some potential fireworks during the holiday season due to COVID beliefs. But honestly, I tested all those out and I hugged everyone. So,
and you're still alive?
You're still here.
100%. And even those that probably didn't want to get a hug got a hug. And I mean, they probably didn't believe what they thought they believed. That's what I'm thinking.
We're testing everyone's faith these days. All right, well, cool. Well, the first thing I want to do before we jump into actually kind of some of the headlines we're going to be talking about is I want to lay down a groundwork for why we're doing what we're doing here today, since this is our first time doing it, especially for those of you guys who are watching or listening. The reason we're doing this is because, simply put, we believe that as our culture moves further and further to the left and further, typically alongside of that, away from God, that the one thing that needs to happen more than ever before is that there needs to be a Christian voice speaking into what's going on in our nation. And there's some people who I still think resist that. And this is what I would say, is if there's anybody that questions whether or not we should just be merely occupying ourselves with religious-natured conversations, I would say this, is that all truth is God's truth. And then the other thing I would say is this, is that the original definition of the word disciple, we've kind of lost this. The word disciple actually means to be learner. So what that means is that once you've become a Christian, you take that next step in your faith to become a disciple. And then what that means is you're taking a lifelong journey of learning what it means to be a Christian. And one of the best ways to do that is to reflect upon what it means to be a Christian in every area of life. If we truly believe that all truth is God's truth, then we need to investigate everything that's going on in our world and then reflect on that as much as we possibly can from a faith-based perspective so that we can come away with a deeper and more robust Christian worldview. So my hope is that even if you're not a Christian, that you will consider some of the conversations that we have here today, and that if you are a Christian, that you will become a little bit more involved with engaging the culture, engaging what's going on in the world, and not retreating to the church as kind of a backup position
for sure
of safety, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So that we can actually move the conversation forward that's happening on a national level, but also to among ourselves as believers in a deeper way to show that Jesus is important for every aspect of life. Correct. So it's my hope that we'll do that today. We'll have a little bit of fun, but then we'll also try to provide maybe a faith perspective, since we're all men of faith, a faith perspective on some of these things. So let's jump into some headlines. So throughout the podcast today, we're going to be looking at what to expect in 2022. So let's look at what we can expect from pedophiles in 2022. So let's talk about Ghislaine Maxwell. Ghislaine. So she just recently was indicted on all accounts, and so now she's facing 65 years in prison. And from all accounts, from everything that we're hearing, is that this trial is now kind of just beginning. Well, the trial's over, but Ghislaine is just kind of like what we have to do with her. We're just at the beginning of that, because now, since she's got 65 years, and I think she's what? How old is she?
While you're looking that up, I've got to make mention of this.
She's 60 years old, by the way.
Yeah, I thought it was 60 or 70. Okay, so she's 60, yeah.
This is a huge milestone. She's made it to trial.
Yeah.
Okay? She's made it to trial.
And was found guilty, indicted, found guilty. It's done.
Correct.
They got her.
I just had to make mention of that.
But
I mean, that's
good point. And let's roll the tape back just a little bit, just to let people know, in case they don't know. Ghislaine Maxwell was the co-worker, life partner of Jeffrey Epstein, who Jeffrey Epstein of Jeffrey Epstein Didn't Kill Himself fame, yes. Who had the exotic private island that was a place where he would go to coordinate sexual liaisons, specifically with underage girls and then high-profile people, is the belief. So, and then Ghislaine Maxwell was so Epstein didn't make it to trial. Ghislaine did, and she was indicted on all counts and then got 65 years for what she did.
It's heavy, but her brother is already getting out ahead of this because he came out and he said that she's not going to flip. Mm-hmm. That, hey, please don't kill my sister. Yeah. She's not going to flip on anybody.
Please don't kill. It leads to the world, please don't hush my sister like you hushed, possibly, allegedly hushed her boyfriend. I don't know. I find it, she is in a situation where her life is at risk regardless whether she flips or not, because she is the loose end. She is the loose baggage for the elites that haven't been exposed yet. I think there's a lot of, and here's my tinfoil hat situation is, I believe that this situation, because the more I read, the more I looked, the more I watched, the deeper it goes. And hey, this person, they rub shoulders with this person, and and even I'll hold back that comment. I'll wait till later. We'll get into some more, but basically, either way, if she reveals names, she's dead. If she doesn't, she's dead. Bottom line is she's got life imprisonment if she doesn't. So what does she lose in one aspect, but what does she gain? The trial's over. Like there's no plea bargaining. If she would have had it, I think she would have already used that card.
Yeah, well, if she got killed, if they murked her, is that a little too on the nose? Like after getting Jeffrey?
I don't think so.
To come back and get her too?
I don't think so.
Wouldn't people just be like,
bro, suicide watch. Tried to kill himself once.
He came off, yeah.
Tried to kill himself a second time.
Yeah.
And then was being watched by 2 prison guards who just happened not to be watching him while he was on suicide watch, with cameras that happened not to work.
You left off one little part too. Before that, when they brought him back in, they removed his cellmate.
Yeah.
So there's been some conversation that allegedly that gentleman was wanted for murder. His cellie was wanted for murder, prior police officer, and that he possibly roughed him up or attempted to kill him.
So that's why he was taken out.
That's talk. But imagine how much would it, in prison period, how much would it have cost to pay somebody to kill a pedophile? We know historically a pedophilia is not accepted by anybody except regular population people in 2022 at this point. But prisoners don't accept it, but in our society currently we do. I don't know why that is, but that's the way it is.
So Epstein's plane was called the Lolita Express.
Correct.
And then, of course you have Orgy Island, where the controversy there. But you could go to EpsteinsBlackBook.com and literally search it has the actual black book on there, and you could search names. It's got everyone in there.
So let's jump into some of those names. So a lot of people, some of the people that have been brought up first and foremost, in relation to Jeffrey Epstein, Ghislaine Maxwell, and I'm probably butchering her name every time. Ghislaine, whatever.
Miss Maxwell.
But at this point, she deserves to have her name butchered.
Prisoner Maxwell.
Yeah, there you go. Inmate.
Yeah. So let's talk about the people that were associated with Orgy Island. So the first one, the big profile name that's coming up is Prince Andrew.
Yeah. If you haven't watched the interview with the BBC yet, please go and watch this interview. It is your uncle getting grilled by your aunt who ate the last donut. Okay? It is the most uncomfortable. I would say sweaty, but you need to look that up too. He talks about not sweating. You guys got we had a chat earlier about this. It's all in there, but
you got to talk about it now. So
and just for context, the reason why I chuckled when he brought up Prince Andrew is because I knew you were about to say this, and I knew you were going to say something about sweating. So people are going to think I'm just like this heartless guy laughing at this tragedy. But
so apparently, Prince Andrew, with his interactions with one of the alleged victims, he was told to have been sweating profusely. Now, Prince Andrew goes back and says, well, that's impossible because at that time I had a medical condition due to my prior service in the Falklands War. He kind of tags that because he's supposed to be a big hero in the Falklands War. So he said, I had a condition because of that. I don't know if it's PTSD or what. I didn't go into that. I didn't look into that. I'm not going to lie. But he did say that he could not sweat at that time. So it couldn't have been me because I couldn't sweat at that time. But now I'm on therapy and now I can sweat. That's literally
if the sweat don't fit, you must have quit.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. So that is a poor defense if I have to say so myself.
Isn't it sad what you can just find an attorney to come up with some BS like
Tell him you don't sweat, please.
Send me a check, and we'll come up with some crap for you to say. I mean, that is.
I didn't exercise in 2009. It couldn't have been me.
That's the worst.
I was totally overweight. Yeah. All right. So let me just throw this in here. So Prince Andrew is the Duke of York, is a member of the British royal family. I'll throw up a picture right now of our buddy Prince Andrew with a 17-year-old girl at the time.
Yes.
And also you'll see Ghislaine Maxwell in the background. So the girl that was in the picture with the prince, it was revealed just recently that in 2009 there was a settlement where she was given $500,000 by Epstein. So this is before
Virginia Roberts was the name.
Mm-hmm.
Correct.
It's changed since.
So she reached a settlement. And then the other, I want to throw this important fact out there too. Bill Clinton took, and this is according to an article from CNN, Jeffrey Epstein pilot testified in court at the Ghislaine Maxwell case trial that Bill Clinton was on the private jet of Jeffrey Epstein 4 times that he could recall. Now, he did say, just so that we know, he did say that he didn't see anything on the plane, didn't see any sexual activity or anything like that, and that he was freely able to roam around the cabin. But suffice to say, there were 4 trips with President Bill Clinton on that jet with Jeffrey Epstein.
That's what's crazy is there's a lot of people that did have interactions with him post conviction. Now, everyone I'm going to say right now is not necessarily that, but some of the high-profile ones are Clinton, President Trump, Bill Gates, Prince Andrew that we're talking about. There was even he helped funnel and hide a donation from Bill Gates to MIT, and like literally, the guy that was running it basically came out and said, "Hey, we have nothing to do with Epstein, yada yada yada." Well, emails come out, and he's like, "Hey, this is a $2 million donation from Bill Gates via Epstein." And we're gonna, he outlines like how to hide Epstein from the donation, all this stuff. So it's just crazy how he's connected there. Like, for example, okay, you were talking about this earlier. L Brand CEO. Here's the crazy thing about Epstein. A little side note is no one knows who his clients were. Yeah, like he never talked.
And he kind of has some shady backstory about how he actually made money.
Right there, it's like this constant, like, what did he do? Like, what was the real thing? So the only documented client, according to the story I read, was the former CEO of L Brands, and his name is Lex Wexner, and I believe it said he paid him $50 million in consulting fees between 2012 and 2017, well after the conviction and everything.
Correct.
This is just that's insane.
And this is why this is important here, because we can kind of flip this to not to close out the conversation, but to kind of get a redemptive point. One of the reasons we're talking about this is because here's the thing that we have to start doing is we have got to quit believing stuff at face value, and we have got to start looking into things and start investigating them, because like what consultant makes $50 million?
You know what's crazy is I believe, and someone can flame me on the internet, no, it is him. Epstein had like the most beautiful apartment in Manhattan on the outside. On one of his residents, I don't know if it was the one in Florida or wherever, but it was super creepy. He had like a chick hanging from a chandelier, like just really weird stuff. But Wexner gave him that property. He transferred it for $0. Which it's like the most expensive property they have.
Now, he's either the best consultant that has ever existed. So it's like Jesus and then Jeffrey Epstein, which we know is not true. Or that money is going to something else, say pedophilia and securing underage girls for sex. Okay, well, let's just step back. Just to say this. This is not to cast any aspersions toward the pilot, but just to tell the story as it is. So the pilot said he didn't see anything, like in the many years that he worked for Epstein, that everything was above board, all that stuff. But in this same CNN article, and by the way, we link all of our sources in the description of these podcasts, so you can go and you can check all you want and just kind of reaffirm these things. But he said when he was under oath on that also that Jeffrey Epstein had paid for his daughter's college, had paid for a piece of land for him to build a house.
I'll fly you anywhere you want to go, Reid, right now, as long as you pay my daughter's tuition.
So he had some incentives, in all fairness,
correct.
And he testified to that.
This is where it gets even crazier. So when I was researching, Business Insider did an article on this, and okay, so Epstein gets in trouble, and it was previously reported by Business Insider, actually, that Secretary Acosta at the time, before that, he's the former Secretary of Labor, Alexander Acosta. He worked with actually Epstein's legal team to arrange a plea deal after Epstein was charged in 2007. And it says that, in the story, that he had enough evidence to put him away to request a life sentence.
Correct.
He goes, and instead he reportedly met with one of Epstein's lawyers who happened to be a former colleague of Acosta, and they got a plea deal for 13 months. Here's where it gets even crazier. Yeah. Fast forward to 2019, he tweets, Acosta tweets, "The crimes committed by Epstein are horrific, and I'm pleased that New York prosecutors are moving forward with the case based on new evidence." That's July 9th, 2019. July 12th, he resigned.
Wow.
That happens time and time again of people connected with this guy.
I agree, and that's where my conspiracy theory hack hits. You mentioned that instead of a life sentence, he got 13 months.
Literally, yeah.
On top of that 13 months, he was put in, instead of state prison, he was put in a county prison. So it's Palm Beach County Prison, and on a segregated wing of that prison, and allegedly he spent as much as 12 hours a day outside of the facility.
He was allowed, they document here, he was allowed to leave 6 days a week to work in his office.
6 days a week? There's only 7 days. There's only 7 days, folks. That means he was only at jail for a whole day.
Let's count.
But they said, one article I read said that allegedly he was being picked up as early as like 7:15 in the morning and dropped off as late as 11 p.m. That sounds really tough.
Yeah.
As for a child predator. So a child predator wouldn't have been put in that wing. Child predator wouldn't have been allowed out. But yet he gets, instead of life, he gets 13 months and then gets just a slap on the wrist, literally, for this.
Yeah. So one of the things we're going to do is throughout this, for every headline, we're going to look forward to 2022. So this isn't over yet. So a lot of people believe, and you can see this in the articles linked below, that what's going to happen next is, so she got the sentence, but what happens next is now she starts flipping, unless her brother is correct and she's not going to flip and she's just going to take it on the chin. So we'll see. But needless to say, so the question becomes, who's next? If she does flip, if she does start naming names about people, because we saw this on the internet, and this was kind of fact check as lacking context, which basically means that it's true. That there's all these CEOs that retired or gave up their positions on a certain day right before this trial was about to either come into fruition or before the indictment was laid down. So the question is so we've got a couple names. Right, and we want to do this really, really quick. What do we think will happen with our buddy Prince Andrew?
Go ahead.
I mean, he's got to be next. Don't you feel like?
Well, it's the latest revelation is that that 2009 payment.
Well, but
they
said
to buy her off.
Right. The argument his side was making was that, well, I'm implied as like being, the additional parties or whatever. And
he's unnamed, by the way. He is unnamed. It's just a royal person, but yet he's the one in the trial, just so you guys know.
And well, he's in that settlement, he's citing that even though I'm not named, I'm considered like additional parties or whatever. But now like that's their argument for why like nothing can happen to him, because there's been a settlement with her. But I feel like it's so much in the news that someone's going to fall on the sword here out of this group. Yeah. And people will want one. Yeah. And I think he's going to be the guy they get.
So he'll be the fall guy. Okay, so then let's move on to the next one. Bill Gates. So and now for integrity's sake, not because I'm afraid to say anything, because I think Bill Gates' people will kill me, but
which is possible.
For integrity's sake, he is watching though. By the way, he's got his eyes everywhere. For integrity's sake, I want to mention this, but also say we don't know if there's any correlation here. But Bill Gates has been named as a person who has worked, as we've already mentioned, with Jeffrey Epstein and sort of connection with him. And shortly before this trial took place, a couple months, in August of 2021, Bill Gates and his wife separated. So all I'm saying is that when we become discerning viewers of what's going on in the world, we have to draw connections. And if we see smoke, then we may have to recognize there's fire.
Well, Bill Gates... First of all, have you guys ever read about like his divorce? Like one of the stories they say was that one of his requests was that he got to spend 1 week in a year with like his ex-girlfriend alone.
Yes.
Like that, like during his marriage, that was like one of his actual things.
That's called a hall pass.
Literally.
And that's called adultery.
Yes, hall pass / adultery / not a Christian thing to do.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Well, and here's the thing.
But that he's not, so.
He also, Bill Gates, though, it came out, he had a big sex scandal at Microsoft.
Right.
Yes.
Like, literally sending inappropriate emails. So we like deductive reasoning.
Yes.
We have someone that has a pattern of behavior here, literally has a sex scandal at the company he founded, is hanging out with Epstein. There's clearly a pattern of behavior here. Now, whether he actually was part of a sex trafficking ring, no, I guess we might not ever know, but it's definitely weird, how he's connected to Epstein, how he also, Bill Gates disappeared from work in a Porsche to meet women. That's a headline from the Daily Mail. This dude had some serious,
he
weird sexual
he may be a
stuff
sex
going
fiend
on.
of some sort.
Yeah.
I think
which, by the way, clearly could have never happened until he made his money.
That was what I was going to say. So ladies, we need you to comment in the comment section if you find Bill Gates attractive. If
hot.
he wasn't rich. That's what we
I'm looking
need to
at
know.
a picture of him. In fact, I'll put it up right now. I'm looking at a picture of Bill Gates, and we need to talk about that frog once again, because I'm getting images of
Yeah,
him.
and to kind of clarify on the Bill Gates thing, in his words, he was basically on a quest to get a Nobel Peace Prize. So he approached Epstein to use Epstein's connections to get money, even though he was one of the richest people in the world.
He said,
for philanthropy.
I lent my name to Epstein because I was essentially chasing money for, to make the world a better place.
And again, why does he need to go to Epstein to get the money? He was a weird one. He was one that I felt was more nefarious because all of his interactions were after the convictions, clearly cut after the convictions. So this dude's a felon. You're one of the richest people in the world. Why are you dealing with this guy?
Yep.
And please tell me that greed doesn't overcome your mind to this degree.
Yep.
I don't think so.
Yeah. All right. Okay. So let's do Bill Clinton. We already talked about him, so let's just do him real quick. I'll just
welcome to Arkansas.
Look at that blue dress.
Jeff had that picture of me. It's so funny.
It's not good when they got my picture.
Jeff's a kidder, that old boy.
Why don't you clean your laundry, girl? I mean, seriously. Let's let the cat out of the bag.
He has a history of
I was a good boy.
inappropriate sexual interactions.
Bill does? What?
Yes, he does. And he had, as we said, 4 trips on the plane, and
that we know of.
Has a connection. Yeah, there could be more, and has a connection with the island. He's been to the island before, so we'll see what happens there. Maybe he'll be named, or maybe just the Clintons will kill off everybody who comes their path. So the last one is this. I wanted to save this for last, just in case you boys wanted to duke it out. Donald Trump was also
fake news right now. Okay, this is fake news.
Donald Trump was named.
Hey, buddy.
And then I'm going to pull up for you real quick what Donald Trump said about Jeffrey Epstein.
He's a loser.
Okay, so by the way, what I'm about to read to you sounds exactly like Donald Trump. I've known Jeff for 15 years. You should read this.
Okay,
please do that in your voice. Ladies and gentlemen, Donald Trump.
Listen, okay, I've known Jeff for 15 years. Okay, he's a terrific guy. All right, he's a lot of fun to be with. It's even said that he likes beautiful women as much as I do. Okay, and many of them are on the younger side. All right.
Okay.
That's
clarify the time.
2002.
2002. So that's pre-conviction.
This is prior to.
01 is when they started the investigation, to my knowledge.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, but
West Palm Beach police.
All that proves is. But first of all, let me say this, and this is almost in defense of Trump.
Fantastic.
Trump has never met somebody that likes him that he won't absolutely adore.
I agree.
So, but then the other thing is, let's be honest, if a Democrat, if somebody on the left said he likes girls on the younger side, we'd be like, oh my God.
Well, and this is
pearl clutchers.
Well, listen, this is 02. This is before the PC wave, where you could publish this story. Was it in the Times?
It was New York Magazine.
Or New York Magazine, yeah. Mm-hmm. Where they're like, oh, we can run this, not a big deal. It's Donald Trump. Oh, it's okay. Now, that would just be nuclear, right?
Yeah.
It'd just be the end of the world.
Former President Trump.
Right. Yeah.
Well, it's not just that. What he's saying is the sensibilities have changed, and that is true.
I agree.
Over kind of like the way we say things.
Like being able to say that, like, you know, like someone coming out and saying that, like the fact they printed that and in that story they don't beat him up about it. There's like Trump said this about him, and then they continue the story like that was just a normal.
That was just a comment.
Yeah.
I'm assuming they're assuming that when he says younger, we're talking like 20-year-olds, late 20-year-olds, something like that.
Yeah, like
18 and a half.
They I think they realized that
R. Kelly.
It's implied that he's not R. Kellying him. Like they're implying that they're of age at least.
Yeah.
You know. And so the Trump thing's interesting because Trump, you know, they're boys for a minute or whatever.
Yeah.
And then I think is it 2007 he kicks him out of Mar-a-Lago.
Yes, I don't know the exact date, but at certain that would be good to look up. But apparently he Epstein hit on a friend's daughter, which is just that to me is the most damaging evidence of it all right there. Like, and here's the next thing. So in those in that arena, that money that
This is
elite
2004.
Okay, so that's prior to conviction.
So he punts him in 2004?
So he says that what he says in 2002, 2 years later, he's getting rid of him for doing what a lot of people would accuse Donald Trump for being a part of based upon that statement.
Yeah. And it's so I don't I never want to be the person that there's a huge thing right now where people are putting Trump on a pedestal that he's going to be the savior, that he's going to come back and he's going to save the union, he's going to save the world, but mainly the United States.
Like
100%.
What?
If there's one thing,
Jesus is white. We know this.
100%. If I can get anything
In
across,
English.
that if anybody hears anything that
In
I
orange.
say in this, that Trump is not the savior, Trump is not the Messiah, and when you put that much faith into one person, you're not only your heart's going to be broken, but that you're placing your faith and your trust into someone that will fail you. And that doesn't matter if it's a pastor, a president, period.
It's been more like I was cool with him. He hit on that
He screwed
the
up,
daughter
though.
of somebody. I kicked him out, and I have nothing to do with him anymore, kind of thing. And so that's the one thing I know, and I could be totally wrong with that.
I agree,
but I don't feel like I read Trump denying like some kind of like whether it be acquaintance or whatever to him, whereas other people. And it's all like, you know, like Clinton and some of these other CEOs that came out and said, oh, I had nothing to do with them. And then they find out, and then a lot of them started to resign.
Yeah.
That's what I found interesting on the pattern there, was that he kind of owned it, and then that was it. And I think you bring up a good point, because I come from the opposition research world, and if there was something there, you probably would have really heard about it.
I think so.
Yeah, well, I mean, Epstein died in what, 2019? Or is it 2020?
I believe that's correct.
2019, right?
I believe that is correct. I had it all written down, but I forgot that at home because I'm so prepared.
Let's see.
2019.
He died in 2019, okay? Trump's up for re-election 2020. I mean, if there was something that could tie him to that...
Anything,
it would have been a hit piece that could have been used. Like, if it was viable, like, you know, I mean...
Well, they certainly use less, for sure.
Sure. So it's like you would think somebody would use that as ammunition during the election. So that's my thoughts on it. You know, you saying that, I hadn't really thought about that perspective, but I'm like, you know what? That is true. Somebody would have sent a room and been like, hey, how can we connect him?
Yeah.
You know, or is there a way we can do something? But I guess clearly there was no way.
All right, so here's the moral of the story, because we got to wrap that one up and move on to the next. I think the moral of the story in my mind is that we need to become, especially as Christians, become more aware of what is going on in our own nation with sex trafficking.
Oh, yeah.
So
Can I say one thing? I don't want to cut you off, but I have to.
Yeah.
One of my things I kept coming up with is, where were the parents?
Yeah.
Dude.
And the
That's
victims, and I want to say this, the victims that Epstein intentionally went for were for girls that were in a precarious position where they were almost homeless, where they were...
Needed money for college.
Correct, where
So
they
he
were
was a predator.
correct, 100%, and where they were put into a position where they would most likely not be believed, or were not going to be cared about, at least from the outside looking in.
I'm super glad you said
where
that.
Where are your kids? That's my
because
big thing.
I wanted to mention this too, and I forgot. But you saying that made me realize it, because you guys have to watch this. I think you can get it on YouTube totally free, but it's called An Open Secret, and An Open Secret is a documentary about pedophilia in Hollywood. And the most eye-opening thing about the documentary is how much parents are willing to let their guard down when their child can be famous.
Yeah.
They do things like let their kids spend the night with their agent.
Yep.
And,
Oh, wow.
Some of these people were these victims. It was 3 and 4 times.
Yeah. Yeah. So you realize that, it's a valid point, is that like parents, don't let your guard down. You have an obligation, a holy obligation to take care of your kids.
Agreed.
Open Secret came out in 2014. I was just Googling it. This is going to be like a random thing to have a real example of this. In the movie Bruno, I saw it like years ago, prior to Jesus. But in one of the scenes, he's talking about having kid auditions for movies because his TV show or movie, it was the Ali G show originally, and then it became movies of the separate characters. But he was having a child audition for like a part. Like, hey, like they put out a casting call. We're gonna have kids come in, and like he's talking to the parent, and it's basically to say like what you were just saying. Like parents will do anything for fame or money to get their kids famous, and I believe the scene is where he's like, "Hey, we're gonna have your child. We're gonna have a wheelbarrow, and your child's gonna push another." I think he says like a Jewish child into the oven. And the parents like, that's great. We can do that. They can do that.
Yeah.
And he's like, perfect.
Yeah.
It'd be beautiful. Like, and he's
That's Baron Cohen, right? Bruno.
yeah, Sasha.
Yes,
Baron
Baron
Cohen.
Cohen.
Yeah.
That's correct.
And so like it's literally, and he does this for like I think several parents or whatever, and they all agree to like
correct
to the scene, and it's just crazy.
Yeah, that's the thing. That's kind
Like
of
how
whatever it takes.
parents are just like, okay, like oh yeah, it's fine, anything, yeah.
Yeah. So the other thing on top of that is just become aware of this stuff, especially those in the faith community, because there are so many ministries that are out there doing some great stuff to try to impact sex trafficking.
For sure.
Just the other day, 30 people were arrested in New Orleans in a sex trafficking sting. A lot of them, I think they said around 17, were previous sex offenders, and they had abducted underage girls and were selling them out to Johns to abuse. And so this happens in the United States.
Yes.
It
All the
happens
time.
in the highest places of our government, and we need to be aware of it with our eyes wide open.
Yep.
No, you're 100% right. I mean, it's even hit. We're recording this in Tennessee. There's been some major stings here, and
Yep.
it's absolutely awful. But there really are some great organizations that are trying to address this problem.
Yep.
And I guess the one positive about this is what we're talking about right now, whereas if this can be brought to light more, I know there's the Human Slavery Day, I think, where everybody puts the X's on their hands. But if we could bring more awareness to this issue about what's really happening and the people that are doing it, where it's like in the movies, you always think of like the weird guy kidnapping someone, but it's really not.
Yep.
It's the Epsteins of the world.
Correct.
That, these white collar guys that are like doing this. And so it's awful. It is, our AIDS epidemic, if you will, of our century is what I believe human trafficking really is, because, it's this problem that has become huge, and it's wrecking so many lives.
Correct.
And you don't even realize until you see a story in New Orleans about that, and it's just like, oh my gosh, this is down the street.
All right, so let's run segment 2, or our headline number 2. So we are looking back and looking ahead. So what we want to do is we want to run through some of the things that we're starting to hear surrounding the conversation of Omicron and COVID as we're stepping into 2022. All right, so the first thing is this, is mainstream liberals are coming around to the conclusion, as we recognize that COVID-19 is not as deadly or even severe a disease for the vast majority of responsible Americans, we can stop agonizing over cases and focus on those who are hospitalized or at risk of dying, writes the Washington Post, Jennifer Rubin. All right, so already...
Jennifer Rubin, by the way, she's typically very left.
Yeah.
Like very, very left.
I thought you were going to
That's
say
really
you had
hard
a
to-
huge crush.
No.
I was like, where's
trying
the
to
pretty?
be careful
So
what I was going to say. I was like, well, what are, because it's like she's a reporter. But I mean, historically, yeah.
So in a nutshell, that essentially what they're saying right here is what we've been saying all along in red states that no longer have mask mandates, which is this, is that we need a long-term solution for COVID rather than what you guys have been offering us, because what we're starting to realize now is what we've known all along, is that we have got to, Omicron is less deadly. It's more virulent. It's about 70 times more virulent or something like that. And so now we have to start adopting a get back to life policy that takes into account a nuanced way of looking at COVID. People like myself and you guys, for the most part, as long as there's no comorbidities, we're in good health. If we got COVID, we'll be okay. We won't have to go to the hospital. So we make the personal decision if it's best for us to get vaccinated, whatnot. I'll go ahead and be the first to say, more than likely, if you do so, what happens is that your case of COVID will be less severe. So you may be rewarded for taking the vaccine. But hey, let's inform people about the vaccine. Let's educate them. Let's not constantly try to manipulate them into getting a vaccine and then wonder why people are vaccine hesitant. But then the other thing is that the other nuanced side of this is that the people who do need to consider more thoroughly whether or not they get a vaccine are those older people. So we need a kind of dual way of looking at COVID instead of this one lump sum policy where we tell everybody to wear masks that are ineffective and then we tell everybody to get vaccinated as if natural immunity is not more effective. So before you guys comment, let's just play this clip real quick because here we have Chris Hayes on MSNBC saying what we've known forever.
Those people who are vaccinated, particularly those who are boosted, the personal risk of being exposed to this went from something that we hadn't really dealt with specifically like this before in our lifetimes. We hadn't quite had an illness this infectious and this possible to cause serious illness to something that does look more like the flu. And the flu, of course, can still be dangerous, kills tens of thousands of Americans every year, but we don't orient our lives around the flu.
Okay, so this is what we've been saying for the longest time. We don't orient our lives around COVID anymore. We learn how to go back to society, do what we need to do, jobs, school, all that stuff, and we take into account the people who are most at risk, those who are not at risk. And he says something interesting here, that essentially it's like the flu. Okay,
Which was just this major talking point. Like,
yeah.
People are like, it's not the flu. Remember
I
that?
had wild type. I had the original COVID, okay?
You had the original Rona.
The OG.
Edition.
The original Rona.
OG Corona.
And it was the flu. Now, I understand that. Look, I understand that there's this. It affects people differently. There's a variation in how it affects people. But I'm 40 years old. I'm really good health. I work out all the time. I had COVID. It was basically the flu for about 3-4 days. It felt like crap, but then I was better. And this is the way it's been since the very beginning. And if you said that back then, when I got wild type, you probably get kicked off of YouTube. So the point is that we've been saying this all along, and so you can say the data's changed, but is that really what's happening?
It's the longest 2 weeks of my life.
Yeah. You had it too?
No, the 2 weeks to flatten the curve.
Oh.
I got you that one. No, I've already had the Rona, though. I've already had it, and for me, it's exactly as you described. The flu was worse, and the way I describe it is the flu. I'll tell the story. So I'm trying to make it short. My wife got it first. She's a school teacher, and when she got it, I was leaving to go to work, and I'd say, "Hey, honey, while I'm gone, will you please just do some house cleaning, do something like that?" I'd come home for the week, and I would just give her a hard time. Like, it looks like you haven't done anything, and she said, "You don't understand. You don't understand." The very next week, I get the flu, so she spent all week telling me, "Hey, why don't you clean the house?" And I said, you don't understand. You don't understand. Oh, I understand, now you know.
Yeah.
The whole point being that the flu kicked my butt, and I couldn't have worked if I had to. I just couldn't. I was just laying there dealing with it. With COVID, even though the lazy bone kicked in and I didn't want to do anything, I could have gotten up and done work. For me, that was for me. But I also know people that it would put them on their deathbed.
Yeah.
Personally, my biggest thing from everything that I've researched and the people that I've been following us, like Peter McCullough, people like that, early treatment is the biggest thing. Mm-hmm. As soon as you even think you've got it, you start treating it.
Or even if you've been around a group of people,
you just start treating it. And I think that's you nailed it with the issue of we're trying to paint with a broad brush. And never in medicine have we ever gone, hey, I know you guys don't have a headache, but everybody take this aspirin. Mm-hmm. Hey, I know you're not in any pain. Hey, everybody take this Oxycontin. Or did we? Or did we? And that caused a lot of lawsuits. Mm-hmm. Does that, you see where I'm going with that? But bottom line is, don't paint with a broad brush when it comes to medication. And where have we ever gotten to the point where we're going to say, if you do not do this medical treatment, it's going to cost you your job, it's going to cost you your life, it's going to cost you your kids in certain situations. That's as anti-American and anti-everything we've ever been, period.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So let's go to the next one. So the White House, of all places, is also pivoting a little bit hard on its messaging, and they have said that there is no federal solution that this gets solved on a state level. This is from Biden himself. So I'm just thinking to myself, yeah, we've known this for the longest time. The federal government needs to lay off, and the states need to handle this because they know what's going on in their states.
Which is how the government should run. The states
Amen.
should decide for themselves. But, okay, I'm going to go back. October 22nd, I just shared this on the Book of Faces on the 30th. So I pulled this up. Yahoo ran a story, which Yahoo's historically a little more left.
Mm-hmm.
October 22nd.
A little?
Yeah. At the October 22nd, 2020 debate against then-President Donald Trump, Joe Biden said anyone who is responsible for 220,000 deaths from COVID should not be president. Biden now has overseen 400,000 COVID deaths. By his own logic, he should resign.
Mm-hmm.
Where am I?
Yeah, you know the thing.
Come on, man.
Skipjack. Like no, but it's malarkey. No,
I wish I had a corn pop button.
oh, corn pop. They like to rub my legs. No,
Hair on my legs stick up.
So I don't want to be that guy, but I am. Working in politics for years, hearing Chris Hayes gave me PTSD to my war room days in D.C., where we had to monitor the news 24/7, and him and Rachel Maddow and all these wonderful people that are always so happy, you know?
And honest.
Yeah. Not left-leaning at all, okay? They don't have a bias.
Impartial.
They're just telling the news how it is.
It's the truth.
But midterms are coming up. And the reality is,
Okay, here we go.
There's polling, there's a lot of stuff out there that states that Americans in general are kind of tired of all this crap. And so, not that they don't think COVID's real, not that they don't think that it's a problem, but they're like, hey, at some point, we've got to adapt and overcome and get back to life one way or another. You know, like businesses have to run. Like no one wants, no one likes the current state of things for what's happened to the economy. So like, hey, look, we've got to have jobs. We got to take care of our families. We've got to get back to normal life.
Okay, now, but here's the deal, is that some of us have been saying this all along.
That's true.
Some of us have been criticized as being anti-vaxxers and being COVID deniers and being Trumpers and all of this stuff.
You got to timetable it, though. So when was that this sexy thing to say? Well, that was like election time, 2020.
Yeah.
You beat that into the ground. That fear sells. So everyone is beating that horse, like,
Yeah, so I'm with you. So there's a point to the turnaround. Okay,
oh, absolutely. It's
so
because they want to win midterms.
Yeah, well, there's two things. So in fairness, everybody's getting COVID, right? Even the vaxxed are getting COVID. And so the self-righteous, morally superior people who went around saying, I'm going to do my tic-tac dance because I'm vaccinated, and everybody else who isn't deserves to die and their kids be taken from them. It's like, come on, man. Anyway, so all of those people are now having to eat humble pie because all of the vaccinated, not all, but vaccinated people are getting Omicron. They're probably going to get Omicron. And now the White House is having to realize in the midst of, we're tanking the economy. Yes, it's growing, but my God, shouldn't it be, since we just came through a total shutdown of everything that we've known? So by the way, I want you to hear this, because now what we've been saying all along is now coming out of the mouth of the sancted Fauci. So here's this.
The reason is that now that we have such an overwhelming volume of cases coming in, many of which are without symptoms, there's the danger that this is going to have a really negative impact on our ability to really get society to function properly. You're hearing reports from cities throughout the country of substantial percentages of firefighters, policemen, people with critical jobs who are infected and required to stay home in isolation for 10 days. So the CDC made a decision to balance what's good for public health at the same time as keeping the society running.
So you're saying that we should develop a balanced approach to attacking COVID, and maybe shutting down the government and shutting down whole states isn't actually a good idea.
It was, look, if a poll came out today and said that Americans are scared to death and want to be locked down, that's what the majority in power's message would be. This is why we're changing tunes on everything. I'm not saying Fauci's super plugged in political. I mean, I think he definitely wants to stay in, his position of power. So he's got some skin in the game for sure. But, you know, what he just said is a common sense conclusion everyone arrived at years ago. They're bringing this back around because they know they're walking into a dumpster fire if they do not change their tune. Because
in 2022, yeah.
Listen, it's getting to the point where this table could run for president and House and Senate, and people would probably vote for it. Like that's to the point where we're getting, and they realize that. So that's why everyone's coming out, hey, we got to have courage and get back to normal, you know? So we're going to be normal now, you know?
It's like I'm waiting for Fauci to start quoting scripture and being like, faith over fear.
Yeah, well, by the way, funny line, there's a video going around where I don't have the full context, so if you Google it, you can find it. But he's in an interview and he's like, "We've been working with some Chinese Chinese government," but it's hilarious. He actually starts saying comment. It's hilarious.
Yeah, he's commenting, by the way, on gain of function research in Wuhan.
Which he's been doing.
Didn't happen.
He's been doing it. He lied under oath about
Rand
this.
Paul, you're a liar.
The biggest issue, like you said, is that they are trying to save face.
Yeah.
Bottom line. Cost.
I want you guys to hear this last one because I think you'll find this interesting too.
Many of them are hospitalized with COVID as opposed to because of COVID. And what we mean by that, if a child goes in the hospital, they automatically get tested for COVID, and they get counted as a COVID hospitalized individual, when in fact they may go in for a broken leg or appendicitis or something like that. So it's overcounting the number of children who are, quote, hospitalized with COVID as opposed to because of COVID.
I just want to say people have been saying that for like a year now.
Folks, if it didn't come from the horse's mouth, I wouldn't have just showed it to you. But so here we have Fauci basically telling us what we've all suspected all along, that the reason they're not talking about COVID deaths and they're talking about COVID case count is because the COVID case count is erroneous, because they're counting basically everything as a COVID case count.
Sure.
Right. And it's been like that since the start. We know that. We absolutely know that. Everybody's heard the story from somebody that they know. Yeah, they said that he passed away or she passed away from COVID.
I know
and they
several
did
people
not
that
even.
died.
They didn't. That's not why they were there. They were a diabetic
what
that
you're
was.
saying.
You know, that was. Period. They were. If they would have caught pneumonia, you know,
Right.
One slip and a break of the hip. You know, that this is not rocket science, but it's just. Oh, he's judging me.
I know, I'm
Don't
laughing.
you clutch your pearls?
Like you had a jingle, one slip and a break of the hip,
I'm
and
trying
you're
to.
gone.
I used to be a rapper.
Yeah.
Wow. You look like one. So I want to be careful here, though, too. So let's add a little nuance to it and just say, even if those people who go into the hospital and they get counted for COVID aren't erroneous because they do have COVID, but they came in for another reason. The other thing that we also know, and we've known for a while, is that people are getting positive tests after they've had COVID for months, and they don't still have COVID. Correct. The reason is because that dead virus can stick around in your nasal pharynx and then give you a positive test.
Exactly.
So the case rate was never this. At the end of the day, the case rate was never this reliable data point to go by. But yet, it was the thing that the media especially wanted to keep using because it had a high number to it and it scared the daylights out of people.
Correct. Of course, more people are going to be infected than they're going to die, and there was a clear shift from the death rate to the caseload, and as soon as it switched to that, I thought personally, why do I care how many people get pneumonia? I don't care.
You're heartless.
I want to know how many people are dying.
Yeah.
Tell me that 50% of the people that get pneumonia die, and I'm going to perk up a little bit. Hey, 75% of the people that get this pass away. Wow. But we have been churning this and droning this to to make everyone hypersensitive about it. And frankly, follow the money. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So please forgive me if I do not rejoice at the fact that the Democrats are finally joining us at the party. The data has changed in terms of Omicron, but I just think they've already they've already shown themselves, they've already tipped their hand, dropped their mask, that they're willing to make anything political if they think it can benefit them.
course,
and I think the real turnaround here has more to do with an economy that's not growing as it should, logistical issues still, people not returning back to work, and a 2022 election coming up where Joe Biden has a record low. He's as popular as Donald Trump is now, and it took him a shorter amount of time to get there. So in terms of their popularity rate, what's that called? Help me out. Approval rating. In terms of his approval rating. So needless to say, the 2022 elections are coming up, and this will determine the House and the Senate, and they're running for their lives because they know that they're about to lose.
You're right. And here's the thing. They know Trump still has a hold of the GOP. He's probably going to run again, and he literally can run the campaign that got him elected. Mm-hmm. The economy, it's destroyed. We built it. It was fantastic. It took them 6 months. Gone.
Round 2, fight.
Right? Yeah, literally. I mean, he can run the 2015 campaign essentially, and he was not great as an incumbent in a campaign. What I mean by that, so people don't get upset. What I mean is he wasn't as strong a campaigner as an incumbent because it was harder for him to have to defend. Whereas when you are running as the guy trying to take the seat, you're just attacking.
Attack.
This is why everything sucks.
He doesn't have any defense.
Make it better.
Attack.
Yeah, you know, and he gets to run that campaign again, and they know it's going to sell like gangbusters in this current climate.
Yeah, and before a lot of people didn't have anything to compare Trump with.
That's exact. I was going to say now he's going to before. Listen,
it was great.
Gas $1.49. Okay, now I just walked in the street. It's $17 a gallon. It's unbelievable.
I'm the greatest president
Unbelievable.
ever.
I mean, do you miss cheap gas? Do you?
Your bills are huge.
They're huge. All right. So let's move on to headline number 3. So what we want to talk about right now is what can we expect from the woke in 2022. So let's look forward for just a moment. All right. So New York just passed a bill, a historic bill, they say, that breaks down Asian American data by ethnic group. So in other words, they just passed what they considered a historic bill to quit lumping all Asian people together. And so like in censuses and that kind of stuff and demographic data and kind of that, they're going to give each group their own special place. So the acting governor of New York signed that into law. The Asian American and Native Hawaiian Pacific Islander data disaggregation bill into law. And so they're heralding this as the greatest new attempt at trying to finally make America a post-racial society. So if anything, guys, I just have to say this. I think right there is proof positive that we are in a place of being post-racial in America when this becomes the thing that we're trumpeting now, that we have to look so far for racial things that the thing that they're so excited about is breaking up demographic information in a greater nuance level. So I'm like all for it, like cool, do it. But to me, it's a further indication of how unracist we are. So as the woke continue to stumble over their own talking points, I wanted to bring up this article. And this is the most hilarious woke pop culture fails of 2021. So we'll have a little bit of fun with this one. So the first one that we'll talk about is Will Wheaton. So Will Wheaton goes, So Will Wheaton is a guy that's absolutely relevant. He's the former Wesley Crusher on Star Trek, The Next...
Wait, the original Wesley Crusher?
Yeah.
Like the OG from like the 90s? Mm-hmm. Oh, I remember this dude. He was like 10 years old.
Yeah, so what's it called? Star Trek the what?
Next Generation.
The Next Generation.
The next
It was the one with Captain Picard.
Yeah. In my opinion, the best. I was kind of a Trekkie more than a Star Wars guy.
Oh, dude. The Next Generation was legit.
Yeah, I like
there's
it.
nothing nerdy about saying
I'm
that.
just going to go ahead and say my
super.
dad watched it.
Yeah, there you go.
It's super woke too, but there's too much to talk about there.
Wokeness, warp speed.
Will Wheaton decided to kick off 2021 with a bombshell by labeling himself a domestic terrorist insurgent by saying that all white people are domestic terrorist insurgents.
I feel like I need a where are they now?
Like 100%. 3 days later, he was arrested in prison for terroristic acts. What was he doing? Mowing the lawn.
Maybe he was trying to tell us something, but he's like, "Oh, white people are horrible." And he's just like, "And I'm a white person, and white people are domestic terrorists."
I'm trying to change my
skin.
Clayton
It's
Bigsby.
like,
that's all
maybe
I'm
he
gonna
just
say.
needed that moment because he's actually a domestic terrorist. Who knows?
Look in the mirror.
But certainly a backlash on that one to himself. All right, and then of course Gina Carano gets the chop. The reason I want to bring this up is this is a little hackneyed because this was all over for a minute. But the reason that this is so important to bring back up so that we can look back at the woke in 2021 is that I don't know if you guys remember this, but right at the exact same time that Gina Carano was getting into hot water for her Nazi post that she put up about like neighbors ratting on each other is like Nazi Germany is basically kind of the thing that
which
she
is
said.
true.
And so around that same time, her co-star, what's the guy's name? Pedro Pascal, who is the Mandalorian, also did the exact same thing. And so it says, meanwhile, Mandalorian co-star Pedro Pascal was allowed to keep his job after equating literally half of the United States to Hitler's Nazi party.
I think the true thing here is just women are treated different in the workplace.
Correct. That's not equality. That's not equality. That's superiority, ladies.
But this is Disney, folks. It's a magical place.
Example.
That's right.
I guarantee
the magic
there's
starts
a huge
here.
pay
So wait a
discrepancy.
second. So you don't think that it has anything to do with the fact that Pedro Pascal is probably a far leftist and Gina Carano is a conservative?
Or the fact that he is the main character of the money-making show.
Let's not fire him.
Pedro, we really wish.
How much can we put a helmet on him in every scene?
Yes.
Don't take the helmet off, sir.
We could replace the really cool Mandalorian chick, but we can't lose the main character.
Not the main guy.
No.
We don't care what he says. All right, so let's go on to the next thing. AOC, the darling of the left. Everyone's favorite.
Bartender.
The one.
The squad.
The one who, no matter whenever she faces criticism, will find a way to turn it into a compliment to herself. Because she just...
Ouch.
She just... Oh, so I do got to say
I
this.
feel like she looks like a horse.
I didn't say that. I have been told that.
Oh,
I'm
yeah,
not saying
that's
like
okay.
I'm not hitting
Like
on her by making fun of her. I'm not laughing at her.
Yeah, sure.
I'm not laughing
Sure,
with
Spencer.
her. I just think she's wrong.
She's hip to your game, brother. She knows when you criticize her, it's actually because you really desire her.
That's exactly right. I want to be with somebody that I totally don't agree with.
So
that is not marriage.
So people understand what we're talking about. Is she was just recently in Florida, and somebody who was in Trump's cabinet said pointed the hypocrisy of her being there while she's a representative in New York City, which is incredibly locked down. So she goes and leaves New York, goes to the red state, to the death hellscape, Ron DeSantis's headquarters, to go and spend some time unmasked hanging out with drag queens.
Is this where
and all sorts of other
DeSantis came
things.
out and said, like, if I had $1 for every time an unmasked leftist
Bill Gates
came
has
to...
Bill Gates has a house down there, by the way.
Yeah, sure.
I read that.
Surprise me.
Next to Epstein. I'm just kidding about that. That's just a joke. You can't even look that up. I'm just joking.
So anyway, so the article goes on to say AOC thought it would be also good. So I want to bring us back to the remembrance of what took place at January 6th with AOC. So she thought it would be a really good idea to lie openly about her presence during the January 6th riots, doing that cry video. And if you have a problem with that, it's probably because you love her. By making it sound as if she was mere inches away from being sexually assaulted and murdered, and actually she was nowhere near any of it.
Definitely not.
All right, so let's move on to maybe just a couple more here. All right, so this one I think is this is another one bringing it up on the radar. Dr. Seuss's books get canceled.
Yeah, that sucks.
Old Doc.
By the way, AOC also cried at the border.
That's
Remember
true.
that? The kids in cages thing? That was turned out to be kind of like
She's got an MO. When
in doubt,
we're
cry it
already
out.
going back to the other one. When Ben Shapiro said he wanted to debate her, she responded by saying on Twitter that he was catcalling her.
Well,
she has an MO, man. Whenever she's backed into a corner and she does not have an excuse.
Who is going to carry the torch for Jesse Jackson and Al Sharpton?
Oh, God.
AOC, baby.
Can we just put that torch out?
You
Anyway,
down with AOC? Yeah, you know me.
All right, so back. Guys, remember?
To the Seuss.
Back to, you guys remember back to when Dr. Seuss was canceled?
I do, and actually... you don't take notice of the books you have, but you're like, oh, we do have some of his books, but
Canceled.
Canceled. Yeah, it's
We're gonna need to confiscate those books for the book burning.
exactly. Like, it's just kind of crazy.
You can't have Dr. Seuss in your house, but you can have books in the public library and in elementary schools, high schools, with children performing sexual acts on each other.
Yeah.
That's acceptable, but Dr. Seuss is going to talk about green eggs and ham. Like, whoa, come on.
Or just have a Chinese character.
Yeah. Like,
falls into some type of stereotype.
Look, I think society has changed so much. So what was acceptable as talk or dialogue 50 years ago was like a different, we just talked about this, like with the Trump Epstein comment from 2002. Like, we're like already in a new era.
Yep.
So it's like, there's going to be things that we go back and look at, and sometimes we're going to be like, you know what? We probably shouldn't have said that. Yeah. Does that mean we should burn everything associated with it?
Correct.
You know, like...
Can you crucify somebody for one bad comment? I mean, you'll never allow anybody... nobody will make the goal.
Here's the thing, is that there seems to be this just absolute... what's the word I'm looking for? Absolute refusal to try to look at intent and motive.
Yeah.
Because it's clear that that he is a product of his time, Dr. Seuss, and that he's not meaning to be pejorative merely. He's just writing a story, and he's trying to make it fun for kids, so he's doing some things that he thought would just spice the story up. He's not trying to do anything overtly racist or anything like that. It's just... We do ourselves a disservice. Like, I think you're 100% right that we should be able to go back and say, hey, thank God we've moved from here and we've learned. Yeah. Hopefully that's who we are as human beings.
Sure.
But also, too, there needs to be a healthy amount of just trying to understand what was taking place back there before we get to the place of just destroying it, canceling
Correct.
it. Speaking of revisionist history, so now the last thing in our woke destroys everything.
Woke gone wrong.
In 2021, the woke decided to destroy Superman. So... Both Marvel and DC Comics decided to further alienate their fan base and pave the way for anime's continued market dominance by rebranding their popular superheroes as woke icons. Both companies took two of their signature heroes, Captain America and Superman, and decided to make them homosexual because this is now the world we live in. All right, so...
Who is like, you know what, guys? I'm done. I haven't had a trans or gay Captain America, and I'm pissed.
We've eliminated the ability for people to really reach out for the people that they identify with. SNL had superheroes that 100%. There it is. They had the superheroes for years, but now we can't talk about it. It was the ambiguously gay duo.
Wait,
and
did they block that?
I'm just saying, like, so SNL probably wouldn't.
They won't accept that because it was a parody.
Correct, but so is Superman in so many ways. I'm not putting on any kind of underwear on the outside of spandex because I don't wear spandex.
Yeah.
And even if I had the ability, I'm not going to go fly around in that.
Well, I think more importantly, here's the thing in my mind that sticks out the most is that, like, not only is it totally cliched to just, like, let's make him gay. It's like...
Superman.
I get it, JJ.
He's
going to be gay.
Like, how is that a compelling storyline? That's, like, the most uncreative thing that you can do is to just say, you know what we'll do? We'll change who his partner is. That's just like, we've come to the end of actually real storytelling. We don't care about universal truths that bind us together. We care about who the person is sleeping with. And it's just like, just be quiet.
I'm going to tie us back to the Star Trek thing.
Thank God.
I could be wrong. Could be wrong.
Warp speed of wokeness.
You sound like James Bond.
No, you mean
like
yes.
Sean Connery.
That's his Connery.
Yes.
That's his Connery.
Okay.
Get it together.
So, when J.J. Abrams did Star Trek, they did the Sulu character. The guy that plays Sulu in real life is like gay rights activist, and they made the character gay in the movie, I believe. And his response to it was Sulu wasn't gay. And he's like a big gay rights guy.
He's going to be gay today.
Yeah, now.
Super.
So, like, but his response, and obviously I'm sure he was like, I'm honored, but, like, the character, like, that wasn't the character. And there's so many things
I respect that.
We adjust to that. You know, like you were just saying. It's like we make it, it's like, oh, well, he's got to be gay. You know, it's just like, it's the same. I don't know. Go ahead.
To kind of caveat what you're saying, there's a World War II based game that just came out, and the same situation happened. They take a black man that had many attributes, and they made his character a completely different storyline. The storyline of the real black man was much better than the storyline they gave him. They took two different people and swapped them to try to elevate this person. But what they did is they undermined the whole story. If by changing these minute details or these major details, you're undermining the whole foundation. You're acting as if Superman didn't come from all this, or now the Punisher's gay, or whatever the situation is, to just appease a population of people, but you alienate a whole nother population. Why don't these people that desire to have a homosexual superhero make your own superhero? Like, you don't have to change what's already here. It's history. Yeah. Like, stop trying to change history as it is. Make your own new history.
Listen, I wish Captain America or Superman would love Jesus, but you know what I got instead? I got Bible Man.
Don't forget Larry Boy.
Yeah.
Veggie Tales with Bible Man.
So I mean, like, it's the same thought process. By the way, George, I think it's George Takei or whatever his name is. He said,
that's right.
"I'm delighted that there's a gay character in Star Trek. Unfortunately, it's a twisting of the Gene's creation. This guy created Star Trek, to which he put in so much thought. I think it's really unfortunate." So like, he had enough like respect and self-awareness of like, hey, we're getting out of what this is supposed to be. Yeah. To kind of like put a stereotype on it.
Okay, so let's not be the stereotype ourselves and just be the finger pointing Christians, and let's just say the best thing for the homosexual community would not be to hijack this stuff and to try to put something that's so cliched on top of a hero that has already been known and has been created. It would be to make your own stuff. Going back to your point, is that we don't think what we're saying at the end of the day is it doesn't serve the LGBTQIA plus community, whatever, ad infinitum.
I'm already offended.
Carrot. Parentheses, unicorn emoji. It doesn't benefit them to do this. Yeah. It's a divisive thing to actually do this. What would be better is for them to create stuff, as you said, that's original and that's thoughtful, instead of just what I said before. We'll make them gay.
Yeah, you undermine a homosexual character like they aren't. I voted for him because he's homosexual.
Yeah.
Well. Why?
It's an identity thing.
Why does that lend them credibility? If somebody's an expert, but they're somebody that's an expert on medical procedures, but they're not a doctor, we have a tendency to say, hey, they're not worth anything because they're not a doctor, and say because somebody's a doctor, they're more credible. If somebody's done the research and they're knowledgeable, I don't care if they're homosexual, I don't care if they're what color they are.
Yep.
It's their knowledge, their literal. Being an expert because of their studies. That's what matters. And it's the same in this situation. Like, a character stands alone by their merits. And we're being taught as a society and as individuals to, hey, that person's Asian American. They should be judged because they're Asian American above anything else. It's not even how it used to be. Like, well, they're American, we're going to vote for them first. Now it's, hey, are they Asian? Are they black? Are they mixed? Whatever.
Yeah.
Well, let's not be pro-cultures ourselves. I mean, Blue's Clues is creating...
What happened to Blue's Clues?
Oh, you didn't know this?
He's back.
I know he came back. He's bald.
One tour in Afghanistan. He's back.
No, the new kid in the Blue's Clues thing. So relatively recently, they had a drag queen come on their drag queen cartoon, and she did the ants go marching one by one, blah blah blah. And instead, they changed the lyrics to the song.
Where is my bag of pearls?
Listen,
do your kids watch Blue's Clues?
No, listen,
it's
guys.
Good not to have kids. I don't have to watch all that.
It's simple. Can we not sexualize cartoons for kids? Like, growing up, I was never like, oh man, I'm so glad Gambit's gay in X-Men. Like, no kid.
That's explosive.
Like, I was offended because Pepe Le Pew had a girlfriend.
Like, no
like
kid.
They both stink. I don't want to be around them.
All right, gentlemen, let's move on to our final segment. And our final segment of the day is Christianity Not Today. All right, so on this final segment, we're going to look back and review some of our favorite Babylon Bee articles of 2021. I love doing this. The Babylon Bee is... I just love them because they offend pious sensibilities, because I can just hear some of the Christians that I know just losing their mind over these articles and saying, how could you say this? But somebody needs to say it. It needs to be said. And I love their heart, too, when they say it, because they're doing it in good humor, but they're also trying to say something that matters very often. But needless to say, I believe they're a national treasure. I love the Babylon Bee, and I'm glad that they are Christians, too, at the same token, because I think we need them.
Truthful organizations news institutions in the country.
We were
staple.
I've got to say this, like, before we started, we were talking about these and how much we were laughing at all of them as we were trying to pick some of our favorites. But one of the things we were talking about is how used to you got a Babylon Bee article and it was so outlandish that you would just laugh before you would even get there.
You could tell what it was.
Yeah, you could just tell. Now you have to actually find out that it's the Babylon Bee because everything in life is so outlandish that you're getting bombarded with that you actually got to fact check your Babylon Bee.
Yeah, they just tell the news sometimes. They don't, but they could just tell the news and it would be hilarious. All right, so Spencer, why don't we start with you? You give us one of your favorites from 2021.
Let's baby. China develops new protective anal mask.
All right. This is funny, but I was like, what? When I saw this, this is one that I did not see.
So the kind of a little bit of background. I won't go totally into it, but
I love the picture.
I don't know if you can see that there.
We'll put it up.
They have an actual picture of what it.
There's a mask.
It's like a mask diaper.
A medical mask diaper. Yeah, that's what it looks like. But basically, China had developed the anal swab test to check for COVID, which they actually say is very accurate. But I don't care how accurate it is. You're not swabbing my butt.
Yeah, that's not happening.
And I'll tell you the little story. So my brother and I were joking back and forth when this actually came out, and they said that this was going on. The next day, or very soon after, the Babylon Bee posted this up, and it was like, bam! So we laughed. We had a good laugh over that.
That's hilarious. Okay, what about you, Josh?
Okay, one of my favorite ones was VP Harris instructed to stop answering all her phone calls with, "Did he die?"
I love that.
Did he die? Did it happen? Is it my time? Because can't you just see her with the big smile, how like happy she gets?
And then they say, no, no, ma'am, he's not dead.
Yes.
I was just kidding.
The Somali guy on the Tom Hanks movie there, I'm the president now.
Look at me.
Yeah,
look at me.
Okay. All right, I'll give one of mine. And this is funny, but it's also like, it's just kind of crazy too. It's like true to life as well. So Southwest introduces new boarding procedure where everyone is given a melee weapon and you just sort it out amongst yourselves.
If you've ever been on a Southwest flight, you know what's up. Like you know what's happening.
Well, it's like, what has happened, man? Because it's like every other day you hear about some fight, some crazy incident on a plane. Is it just like people are so fed up with masks? Or
it's in Florida normally for some reason.
It's crazy.
They're mad because they got to go home.
Here's a recent.
They got to go to a blue state.
There you go. I gotta go back to New York. Dang it. No. Here's a recent one. Ghislaine Maxwell sentenced to 10 unsupervised minutes with Hillary Clinton.
You mean
ding ding ding
Hillary Clintavo or whatever they call her or whatever in one of their articles.
My other one was unvaccinated man feeling left out as all his vaccinated friends have COVID.
You know what's crazy is that's probably going to be a real headline like on MSNBC like 6 months from now.
Before their time.
All right, this is a blast from the past too because this brings us back to the summer of 2020. This was in 2021 actually. New Oregon Trail game. So this goes back to our childhood.
I love it. Yes. Love it.
New Oregon Trail game has you try to survive a trip through Portland, Oregon.
Oh,
and it's funny. It's got
died of a bullet wound.
You'll see it, but it's got a green little pixelated guy throwing a Molotov cocktail.
You suicided yourself.
So. The Virginia gubernatorial election that happened recently, Terry McAuliffe baffled that telling parents the state owns their children wasn't a winning strategy. Which the big drama there was like the education thing. Just like,
and
we know what's best for your kids.
Yeah, what's crazy there is that's another true to life one as well. It's like, why did Terry McAuliffe actually think that this was a good idea? But nonetheless, hopefully they learned their lesson.
There was another one where it was like McAuliffe shaves his head and tattoos a swastika to his face to warn his to warn Virginia about his opponent.
Yeah. All right, how about this one? With that being said, Hitler proclaims anyone who attacks him is attacking science.
No.
Trust the science immediately.
Mein Führer. Well,
get in the shower. It's comfortable.
It's sad. That one hurts because it's like,
true.
That's literally what's happening.
You need to trust the science. Eugenics. It is absolutely, completely true.
Yeah, give us your children.
You're inferior.
Okay, well, what about you, Spencer?
The other one that I got a crude crack up about was confirmed. Faith without works incredibly relaxing.
That's funny.
Oh, there was conviction deep within that one. Like
Yeah.
you're like, oh, he's talking to me.
This is not one I want to bring up, but I did see they make ridiculous articles that only Christians would laugh at. Like it said, pastor loses himself in a vast forest of poinsettias on Christmas Eve service. But on that note, let's end on.
You can just see it.
Well, it has a pastor with his hand sticking up out of a bunch of poinsettias that are around the pulpit. Anyway, all right, so let's end on a Christian note. So this last one just recently happened. It's Demo Day, shouts Joel Osteen, taking a sledgehammer to his church walls.
There was another where it was like,
Oh, to be a plumber.
yeah, I was going to say it's like, did you see the meme of like the guys like dressed up like they're like going to like they're in a crime heist movie and it's like us being plumbers at Joel.
Oh, yes. No, so that was if you're talking about the same thing, they had a meme and they had Jim Krasinski, Michael, all the guys from Jim, Michael, and Dwight from The Office.
Yes.
Remember when they did the thing where they're trying to steal the copy machine from the other branch, and they're all dressed up and they've got like fake mustaches on and stuff like that. And the meme was something like me dressed up as a plumber to go to Joel Osteen's church.
It's crazy.
It's the J.G. Wentworth commercial. It's my money and I want it now. That's totally Joel Osteen as soon as he found out. That's the money that was stolen from me in my wall. Why would you put it in the wall?
So
Tell me that.
apparently the backstory, because when I was like, what is this? Like in 2014 or something, they reported all this money missing.
Yes.
And apparently somebody was pissed. And they were literally just taking the checks and shoving them in the wall. So maybe they're like, I'm not really stealing it because I'm leaving it at the church, but they're never gonna find it. Like
that's that's not a pearl clutch. That's like a pearl 3-pointer. Into the wall.
Kobe.
That's pretty wild.
That's a pearl, nothing but net.
It's my money and I want it now.
You have good voices. Like
this.
you had a German. You had the
Ladies
movie.
and gentlemen.
It's Sean Connery.
Yes,
Sean Connery.
it's about time we get on here and talk about it. Bond. This new Bond is ridiculous.
I
Yeah.
didn't see the new one. Did anyone see it?
I want you to know that there is so much predictive programming in that movie. My dad wanted us to watch it, so we watched it with him.
Is it
100%.
woke?
I didn't catch the woke vibe as much as just there's a lot of like setting this world up for what's coming.
Okay.
If you believe that. That's conspiracy theorists, but I believe
Yeah,
it.
a guy that I know, former military.
I like where this is going.
Yeah, well, he just said, I'm surprised to let this movie come out, is what he said, for what the topic is. But I haven't seen it.
It's viral. It's got some virology in it. Some virus, letting the virus go. The virus passes through people, but pinpoints certain people.
Well, let's
DNA.
let's go ahead and land this private plane down on a undisclosed island and just say
I never saw anything bad happen, ever.
you're like the black guy from Police Academy.
Yeah.
Anyway, all right. So I hope that kept you guys informed a little bit. I hope that it also maybe challenged you a little bit. If you felt like something was offensive, then maybe we did partially our job today.
Be sure to let us know in the comments.
Trust me, Josh, they will. I hope some of what we did today was informative. I hope it gave you some freedom to be able to think about giving your voice to some of these conversations and gave you a little bit of confidence to do that. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, what we're after here at Indie Thinker is obviously independent thinking, but independent thinking for this purpose. I've heard far too much that I just don't know enough about that. And then that becomes an excuse not to do anything about things that are going on in our world. And I think that that is no longer an option that we can take as Christians. And so what we hope to do here at Indie Thinker is just in some small way, try to bring some information to people so that that barrier between their courage and their fear can be broken down. And typically that's what people always say, I just don't know enough. So hopefully we gave you some information today. Hopefully we even gave you a little bit of courage in the way that we spoke about these things to say, hey, you have the freedom and the license to be jovial, to joke around about these things, but also to take certain things seriously and to broach these topics. And I'll just say it again until I blew in the face. We need to. If anybody needs to,
That's
it's
true.
us. We cannot let
Agreed.
everybody else be the mouthpiece of truth and reason for us because they've already proven they're not going to do it. But if there is anybody that will do it, that has an obligation morally, scripturally, and everywhere else to do it, it is us. So with that being said, don't forget to like, subscribe, share this video with friends, and of course, respectfully, comment down below. Thanks so much for watching, guys. You can catch brand new episodes of Indie Thinker with Reid Huberman every Monday and weekly bonus episodes to keep you thinking throughout the week. But you have to subscribe and click the bell to be notified when new episodes drop. If you enjoy this content, make sure to like this video and share it with friends.